What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Schuh Show. I'm Grant Cohn. That's my name. That's Rob Schuh. We're their hosts. It's Friday, but in Niner world, it's basically Thursday because they play on Monday, which means they're having their second practice of the week today, not their walkthrough. If you care. Anyway, the title of this show is Kyle Shanahan the right coach for Trey Lance? Think about that. Marinate on that. We're going to come to that a little later. We're going to build up to it. I want you to gather your own thoughts there. First, we're going to compare Shanna Lynch and Harbalki. Which regime was more toxic? Was. There it is.
So, for entirely different reasons, both of these regimes managed to infuriate 49er faithful. When we look back, it's tough. Harbaugh and Balky disagreed quite a bit, did not get along personally with one another. Is that a fair statement? Is that a fair statement to sum up the Harbaugh?
They were like sort of at odds. They were undercutting each other, working against each other at times, yes.
Yeah, and that seemed to be a very toxic relationship. The end result was a chasm between the GM assembling the team and the coach attempting to execute on the field. And you could also blame Balky for bargain bin shopping, continuing to dip his toe into the ACL waters and bring in players that he thought he was getting at a bargain. And quite honestly, he convinced a lot of us he was getting at a bargain, but none of them really saw the field. So that was detrimental to the 49ers. I think we can agree on that point.
Yes, absolutely. But what's interesting about they had a toxic relationship, right?
Yes.
But the pairing worked. They didn't like each other. They were constantly trying to replace each other. I think at one point the Niners tried to trade Harbaugh to the Browns, and they didn't want to work with each other. But the fact of the matter is, they won a lot together. They never had a losing season together. And maybe you don't have to like people you work with, because these two guys seem to really like each other. They're buds. They're family. Their wives hang out together. Their wives hang out with Jed's wife, and they hang out and they tweet about it. It's so much fun. It's so great.
But there's a lot of wine being drunk.
Yeah. So the relationship isn't toxic, I guess. At least it doesn't appear that way on the outside. But the pairing doesn't work. So I guess I'll say that's, in a sense, that's toxic too.
It is, because it makes me wonder, when you have two people that get along so splendidly, you can ask the question, have you created, and the results are poor, which I think we have to acknowledge right now, the results are poor.
Right.
You have to ask the question, have they created an echo chamber? Have they created a situation where someone has an idea the other may actually not agree with, but because of the close nature of their relationship, they don't really stand their ground and have that toe-to-toe argument about which player they should be taking. And apparently they're taking the wrong ones at this point.
Well, it's reported that there was some of that going on between Mac Jones and Trey Lance this year. But so maybe John Lynch picks his spots. But whatever the thing is, it doesn't seem like it's working at all. And that either one has the answers for personnel. And it doesn't seem like this team is trending the right direction. It's bad now. 2022 could be worse.
It could
be worse.
They are roughly $8.5 million over the cap. Only 31 players signed. It's brutal.
And going into year 6, that's toxic. And you look at a team like, has Shanahan already lost this team? I mean, the way they played against the Cardinals B team, the way they lost at home to the Colts, I mean, the way they really have been sloppy all freaking year. Did he ever have this team in particular? I don't really know. It seems like this season is toxic, the whole thing.
Yeah, I can't go that far. I do agree with the embarrassment at home, the lackluster performance against the Colts, but
Every home game's an embarrassment.
What's that?
Every home game's an embarrassment.
Yes, since over a year ago.
Since the NFC Championship game
has been an embarrassment.
Yes.
It is certainly fair to criticize. I do wonder, would more opposition be a good thing? And are they capable of greater opposition between the two? Do you think that the dynamic can change at this point, or are we 5 years into a relationship and it is what it is?
It's what they need. I don't know if they'd accept it. It's what Kyle has needed the whole time, but it's also what his dad needed. And his dad, basically got rid of it by getting so much power and money. And if you look at it, look at what his dad and Kyle did in Washington.
Right.
I mean, I know it feels like a long time ago, but think about it, right?
It was.
4 years. They had that one good year, but the other times weren't really. How different is Kyle's time in San Francisco from Mike's time in Washington? How different is it? One good year, injuries, excuses, it didn't work. I'm just saying.
Yeah, totally different rosters, totally different flash in the pan with RG3 versus Jimmy G having a solid season, building off of a lot of positive defensive performances. But the end results are very similar.
End results very similar. Anyway, so I'm going with Shannon Lynch. That hard balky, it was never going to last long term, but those 4 years, some of the best 4 years the Yorks will ever experience.
They were great. It's like a volatile relationship, where you dated someone and they're a little bit off, but like the relationship is really passionate. And so the result is pretty exciting, but it ends quickly, right? It doesn't last long.
That's a great analogy.
I got to go the other way because of the fact that it ended. I got to go that the Harb Balky situation was more toxic because it blew up. And I hope that this situation with Lynch and Shanahan is still fixable.
You're so positive. I love
I am.
Optimism. I love that. Okay. The issue, talent or coaching. That's what this next section is called.
Are the 49ers a roster that's devoid of the necessary talent to win games? Are they lacking the talent? Or are they merely failing to maximize the talent that they have? It's a question of who are you blaming? What combination of blame do you think lies with whom within the organization? Because I looked at this team in the offseason, and I think you did too, and saw a talented roster. Now, injuries have changed that to some extent, but how much? How much of a difference do you see between talent and execution?
Let's go through it real quick. They have the best left tackle in the league.
Right.
They have a hell of a rookie running back.
Hell of a rookie running back.
Hell of a wide receiver, Deebo Samuel.
Hell of a wide receiver / running back.
Hell of a punt returner in Brandon Ayuk, who had not a phenomenal game. He fumbled, but he made a lot of difficult catches in that game and is a good player.
A lot of promise. Yeah.
They have the highest paid tight end in the league.
They do.
They
have
one
of the best.
Yeah, they have Nick Bosa.
Yep.
They have the highest paid middle linebacker. Well, the second highest paid middle linebacker in the league.
Highest paid fullback.
They have 7 or 8 guys who are among the best of their position. You can't say this team is devoid of talent. Now, it's definitely a flawed roster.
Yes.
But you could – I mean, it also has Eric Armstead, who's a good player, too. He's an asset. He's overpaid, but he's an asset. So, I mean, really, the core is there. You have – and I feel that I think it's a coaching thing. Because I think if you put Harbaugh on this team right now, they would have an identity, a vision, and a winning record. I think Sean McVay, I think, would have a winning record with this team. The fact that they're 3-5 right now, I think, is a failure of coaching. And I think Kyle will have to agree with that. Because when he goes up and says, well, we should be better. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a reflection on him.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
Yeah, I see it dividing up a little bit to your point of the gaping holes within the roster. There were some fundamentally illogical choices made in the offseason this year. To base your premise for a successful defense, lay all your eggs in one basket with Jason Verrett as your starter. While I think it's fair to assume that you thought you'd get more than one game out of him if you are John Lynch, you still couldn't count on a full season there. So that was an error in logic. Going in with a quarterback you're paying $27 million for and drafting a quarterback 3rd overall, another failure in logic. So those I don't excuse Lynch for, because he said, hey, I've got 51% of the responsibility here. But I think you're right. The bigger share of the blame lies with all this talent that's on the team that's not being maximized.
Here's where the talent really fails in the secondary. I mean,
yes.
What was the plan there? To rely on Jason Verrett, Jimmy Ward, and Jaquiski Tartt. Oh, my God, what could go wrong? I love all those 3 players. I mean,
yes, all very talented when healthy.
But come on, it's like you can't count on them to be healthy. You can't be surprised when they're hurt. And they are. They were really not prepared for any one of those guys to go down. So that's a problem. And then on offense, like the offensive line, I'm sorry. It's still a problem. Alex Mack, he should probably retire after this year. And Daniel Brunskill should probably be a backup on any offensive line. And then Mike McGlinchey's out and hasn't been playing great. So those 2 issues are a big problem with this team. and they're critical positions on a football team, offensive line, secondary.
Very critical.
Yeah. All right. This is a topic I've been bringing up down in Santa Clara.
It's a
the
good
identity. Now, Mike Silver had a great article after the Niners lost to the Cardinals. He spoke to a player off the record, and the player said, good teams have an identity. What's our identity? So this is a concept they're talking about inside the Niners. And to me, the identity is obvious. I mean, when they've been good, well, really, they've always had one identity since Shanahan's been here. It's a run first team. Obviously.
Yes.
It's a run first team. When they won in 2019, they were second in rushing attempts. They were really good at running, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. They play Arizona. Arizona just puts some like a certain defense on the field, 6 defense, whatever. And Kyle's like, "Oh, we can't run today. Sorry, guys, we're not doing that. We're going to throw."
You don't want to end up in 3rd and 12s.
Sorry, can't do that today. We're going to throw 49 times and throw and run 10 times. Here's why they can't do that. You know, if they had because of the offensive line, it's not about Jimmy. It's about the offensive line. It's built to run block. It's not built to pass block.
That's true.
So I know, like, if you had a better offensive line, you could say, yeah, we're going to take what the defense gives us, and today we're going to win throwing. But you didn't build your team that way, Kyle. You built your team to win running, because when you pass, you have one asset on your offensive line, your left tackle. The other 4 guys are shaky. When you run, you got Trent Williams, you got George Kittle, you got Kyle Juszczyk, you got Laken Tomlinson. You got 4 guys at the point of attack on the left. I mean, and plus you got Elijah Mitchell. Right. So you running to the left, especially outside the tackles, is deadly. And if defense is overplayed to stop it, there's a million ways to make them pay for that. You have to stick to that because you need to play to the strength of your blockers.
Yes.
As soon as you say, well, we're going to drop back 50 times, well, then you can count on maybe 5 sacks, a bunch of penalties, a bunch of drops, a couple fumbles, and an interception. Just bad execution across the board. When you run, it's much better execution.
The vast majority of turnovers this season have happened while the 49ers are attempting to pass the ball. It's not while they're rushing. And they're not a good enough team to overcome these types of penalties and turnovers. Right. They just don't have the explosive plays. I struggle with Shanahan saying that, well, you can't run against that front when there are 6 guys on the line, 8 in the box. You're going to end up in a lot of 3rd and 12s. When the very first play of the game was against that 6-man line for the Cardinals, Elijah Mitchell, because he's special, breaks the first tackle and goes for 9.
Yep. Give him a
so
chance.
You're not always going to end up in 3rd and 12 if you run against that front. But then you go to 5 straight passes. And what happens? You're off the field lickety-split because, to your point, that's not really your strength. The biggest question I have is, if that's your strength, if that's your identity, why are you allowing other teams to dictate to you how you approach them, how you attack them? If that's your strength, then attack them with your strength. Show them it's your strength. Execute on your strength. It's very puzzling and very frustrating.
Believe in your strength. And once again, in the Super Bowl, when you lost, where were those outside runs for Mostert and Debo in the second half?
Right.
They were gone.
Got away from it.
You got to believe in your strength. And again, like, weigh it. When you run, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Laken Tomlinson, all these guys, assets. When you pass, Trent Williams, Alex Mack could whiff. Daniel Brunskill could whiff. You got Tom Compton at right tackle.
Tom Compton.
Laken Tomlinson is nothing special in pass protection. Like, it's not even Jimmy's fault. And then you got Jimmy, who is a little turnover prone. And then you got these wide receivers who can't catch a cold. And then you got Kittle, who's fumbling, and Debo, who's. I'm just saying, good things happen when you run to the left. And if the Niners aren't good enough to just be like, we're not going to do that today, and we're still going to win. You're not good enough to do that. Maybe the Falcons were in 2016, but this team that you put together, Kyle, isn't.
I have to agree. I will have to stand up for my man George Kittle fumbling. He did fumble single. He's only lost 1 in his career. I know it was a big one and it just happened. But my man George.
Week one.
This was his second lost fumble?
Week 1, the onside kick. The onside kick.
Yes.
Yeah.
That counts as a muff, but yes, you're right. That should be a fumble.
George, get it together. All right, next thing. This is my next topic. This is my little bonus topic.
Bonus.
This is the title of the show. Is Kyle Shanahan the right coach for Trey Lance? Here's why I say. A lot of people are like, you can't fire Kyle.
Right.
You got to give him 2 years with Trey Lance. And that makes sense. Sure. But let me look at it a different way.
Okay.
This is a hypothetical. What if Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to coach Trey Lance? Do
Uh-oh.
you really want to expose Lance to 2 years of that? And think of it. It's been reported that the guy wanted Mac Jones, Kyle. And that basically they went from Mac Jones to Aaron Rodgers at the last minute to Trey Lance at the very, very last minute. So it's been reported his first choice was Mac Jones. Then in the offseason, I mean, he never gave Trey Lance a chance. He decided in July that Lance wasn't ready, never really didn't have an open competition, did not have an open competition. And now, when he did play the one time, he was used as much as a running back as he was as a quarterback, got hurt.
Yeah.
And then recently, there's been leaks from national reporters, specifically Mike Silver, who say things like, guys who aren't in the building, aren't around, didn't watch the training camp, that Trey Lance actually looked good the first week of training camp, but then he regressed and lost confidence, and that's why he's not playing. That's the leak. That's the narrative. So where's that coming from? I don't know. But if you put all those pieces together, do you get the picture of a coach who's really enthusiastic about coaching this kid? Or do you get the picture of a coach who's like, you know what? Never wanted him. I was right. I'm going to prove it right. Because if that's the case, then you got to get Trey Lance away from this guy now. I wouldn't trust Trey Lance to start one more game with this guy at quarterback, with this guy at coach, because I already saw he's going to use Trey Lance, and that's terrifying. It's right. It's actually not right. It's wrong.
I have to agree with that statement, that the last one, that the way in which he used him when he came in against the Cardinals was absolutely wrong and painful to watch, quite frankly. I take the other side of it. So let me say, in response to the if scenario, if what you said is true, if that's the feeling for Shanahan, if those things did in fact play out in the way that you suggest, where there is some...
Never wanted him, don't want him, still don't want him, never going to want him.
And there is some evidence to support that, although I will point out there's evidence to the contrary as well. So it's a question of what evidence you take and what storyline you build. But if we accept the storyline that you just built for us, which is a plausible one.
I'm not sure I accept it either. I'm just throwing it out there.
It's a possibility. Let's acknowledge that without saying it's a certainty.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then yes, I do think you have to move forward. You cannot have a pairing like that. So we just went through and said, well, Harbalki, you were able to get by with that animosity. With a GM and a head coach, that can work. Head coach and quarterback, I don't think so.
Harbaugh never undercut his quarterback.
No, Smith, not until he benched him, right? When he was starting, he had his back 1,000%.
And then he had Colin Kaepernick's back 1,000%.
That's right. That's right.
And Kyle never has any quarterbacks back 1,000%, just like John Gruden never did. And those guys to me are very similar because Gruden had personnel power in Oakland too. Anyway, look, what I would like to see from Kyle is I would like to see him show that he wants to coach Trey.
Yes.
You said that there's been signs and evidence that maybe he does. I'd like to know what those are because I haven't seen one in a long time.
Yeah, that is a fair statement and a fair question, a fair ask.
There was a story from Lynch that he was drawing up plays. I didn't see that. Right.
And to me, it goes back to what type of individual is Kyle Shanahan and what would he allow to happen in his building? Because to me, that's the basic premise. This is Kyle's building. I think above all else, if it comes down to where does the buck stop, the buck stops with Kyle. I would imagine in meetings with Jed that Kyle's voice has the heaviest weight. Right. So I'm not saying he couldn't be forced to draft somebody. I just don't think it's likely that he would draft someone he doesn't want at quarterback. I think it's unlikely Lynch would force someone on Kyle. So to me, that feels like a stretch, but I have to admit it's a possibility. And the only way to disprove it is for what you're asking for, is to get Shanahan to actually show me the money.
Yeah, I mean, it seems weird that Kyle Shanahan would allow himself to get overruled on a quarterback, but that's what's been reported.
Right.
So I would like to see something. The next time that he's in there, show us some play act. Show us that you're confident in Trey Lance, that he can run your offense. Because we thought you drafted him because you thought he could run your offense, as opposed to Justin Fields, who's killing it.
Right.
Well, as opposed to him. So just show us some enthusiasm. Because what I'm afraid of is they'll keep playing Jimmy until they're finally knocked out of the playoff race.
Right.
Or here's one of two things. Jimmy will take him to the playoffs, and Trey won't play this year, and Jimmy will start again next year, and Kyle will say, Trey's not ready. That's one. That's one. Or two, they finally get eliminated. Trey starts and he goes back to playing like a running back and he gets hurt again. And then he's set back for next year. Those are the two things that I'm concerned about. And
both could lose him the fan base. Both of those courses of action would be highly upsetting to a large majority of 49ers fans.
Well, Kyle's been, really upsetting a large majority of 49er fans all year.
Yes,
all year. And his response is basically like, leave me alone. When you see me at Safeway, don't talk to me. When I'm
don't bother me.
My soccer game.
At my soccer games.
Yeah, like that's his attitude. Like, I got this. All right, man. I guess you have the same record winning percentage as Chip Kelly, so please show us.
Oof, goodness gracious.
So I don't know. Is he the right coach for Trey Lance? Show us, please, now.
Yeah, I'd like some optimism going into 2022.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the end of the year scenario.
This is an exercise to follow the logic that Jed might use. This is a hypothetical that at the end of the year, Jed's got to determine what to do. Am I going to move forward with everyone in place? Am I going to let a few people go? How's he going to go about doing his due diligence? So let's assume that things finish in much the same way that they have started, that the 49ers don't completely get it together and the system, the season looks to have unfolded poorly. You say to yourself, they're not maximizing talent, but there were also considerable holes on the roster. What are those conversations going to be in those exit interviews that he has with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan? Do you see infighting? Do you see blaming one another? Or do you think people circle the wagons and try to keep this thing together for another run next year?
That's not how the NFL works. When people miss the playoffs and someone has to be held accountable, there's a lot of finger pointing. No one says, hey, fire me. Fire me. So what happened is, I would imagine John Lynch would say something like, well, Kyle didn't play any of my he didn't play any of the guys in the first 3 rounds. I got him a quarterback, I gave him a guard, I gave him a corner and a running back, and he never gave any of them a chance. He says that they didn't look good in practice. I thought they looked fine in practice.
Right.
He never gave him a chance. In fact, who's to say he didn't sandbag him to make me look bad? I don't know. I'm just saying, Jed, how can you really judge me when he didn't? The reason my resume looks so bad right now is he didn't play these guys.
Right. Didn't give him a shot.
Why would you not say that?
That makes an easy course of action and an easy narrative to produce, because
we don't know Aaron Banks isn't good. We don't know that. He didn't even play in preseason. That's something they decided behind closed doors. I don't know.
It's wild.
Wow.
And on the opposite side of it, you would have to think that if the pressure is being applied, right? This is if the screws are being applied to these guys. If it's a friendly conversation, Lynch may not blame Kyle. But if Jed's really hitting him with the screws, then, this guy's got to do what he's got to do. Got to feed my family.
So easily. I mean, he can say, he said I didn't play. He's blaming me for not playing. They're not good. They're not good. I mean, he overruled me. He didn't listen to me. He thinks he knows more about football than me. Fine. The guys he gave me aren't good. I don't know what you want to tell. Like, the quarterback, that's not who I wanted. I told you, Mac Jones. You guys all laughed at me. Look at him. Look at him now. You questioned me. You guys, okay. So now you got this situation. And then, the rest of easy, right? Jalen Hurd. He could blame him for that.
Yeah. You could point to he drafted almost an entire draft class for 2022 when we needed talent this year.
Yeah. I don't know. Basically, both people are going to be pointing at the draft. So, hey, look at that. Look at it. Kyle, John can say you didn't play him. Kyle can say they weren't good.
Does Kyle point to DeMeco Ryans if everything continues as the status quo of what we've seen right now, where it's inconsistent, perhaps a few games where they flash like they did against Arizona the first time, but inconsistent product on the field? Do you think Kyle stands up for DeMeco Ryans and holds out for a second year the way he did with Saleh? Or would you see Ryans as a potential scapegoat? Or an appropriate fire?
If they make the playoffs, no one's getting fired.
I agree.
And then Jameer Garoppolo will be the quarterback next year. That's my prediction.
I hope not.
Prediction. And that's, again, people think that Trey wasn't ready this year. He's going to be ready. Kyle's going to think he's ready next year after not playing. and Jimmy Garoppolo making the playoffs, guys, can we please don't let Kyle deceive you like that? Can you not? Come on. All of a sudden, he's going to be like, Trey's ready. Hey, guys, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? He's ready now. Yesterday, he wasn't, but now he's ready. And it's so great. And I want everyone to sing it from the mountaintops because I'm so excited for Trey. No. Hey, why is Jimmy still quarterback? Well, Jimmy's good. What about Trey? Yeah, he's doing better. I'm just saying. But I get cynical sometimes. I'm sorry, especially around the holidays.
Well, we're 3-5. It's easy to be cynical. It's hard for me to stay positive, Grant. And I am Mr. Positivity. I'm Mr. Glass half freaking full. And here I am, a little upset still. So, okay, if you put yourself in Jed's shoes and you hear those hypotheticals we just talked about, what are you doing? If you are Jed York, end of the year, Niners don't make the playoffs. Let's say they go 6-11. Seems like a likely outcome based on the remaining games on the schedule. What are you doing?
I'm firing both of them. You brought them in as a team. They go as a team. I don't think it's right to sort of try to play judge and jury there and try to decide who was responsible for what. No, they're a team. And if they're reduced to pointing fingers, then they're not a team anymore. And they shouldn't. No, I would do, because look, if you fire Kyle and keep Lynch, who's to say Lynch is good at his job and can hire someone better than Kyle?
Right.
And if you fire Kyle and bring in a new general manager, who's to say Kyle will play that guy's rookies?
Right.
Who's to say?
You've essentially given Kyle more power at that point when he already had the lion's share of the power to begin with. So now you've said, well, we don't really want him stepping in on personnel decisions, but if you keep him and let Lynch go, it's going to be that much more difficult for the new GM to stand their ground.
It seems to me that you either keep it all together for one more year or you move on from everything.
I land in the keep everything together, but what you point out that's an interesting take on it where I would agree is if in the exit interviews, if at the end of the season things do go badly and they are pointing fingers and not together, at that point, then I would, if I'm Jed, have to consider ending this thing, because then it's starting to be toxic. You're taking what was a great relationship, it's now devolving. They weren't working well together. They weren't in complete sync when they were friendly. If it starts to devolve, now I'm second guessing it. But my hope is they keep it all together. They allow this thing to play out.
Right. And to do that, they would have to make the playoffs, and that would require a lot of winning, which they haven't been doing recently. Sean says Shanahan didn't want Mac Jones. Oh, Sean Dunn says Shanahan didn't want Mac Jones. Saban and said Kyle never asked him one question about Mac at pro day, and he never had that happen before. Smoke screen. Okay, well, you have Sean Dunn saying that Kyle didn't want Mac Jones. Then you have Mike Silver and Adam Schefter and a lot of other people say they did. So keep that in mind. Got to hear both sides of the story. Thank you, Sean, with the new information. Moving on.
It would seem to me that he at least considered Mac Jones. Given all the reports out there, you have to believe that he at least considered Mac for the pick, even if it was when they were sitting at their other position and not at 3.
Chris Sims, I think, was him coming out so quickly and saying it's Mac Jones. They have tattoos of each other's initials on. They are very close. That's his guy, and it was reported by a lot of people, including him. It was Mac, and Mac's good. That's the thing. He could end up saying he was right about it.
Right. It fits the system. The logic is there for that pick. It wasn't there at 3, but the logic is there.
Is this season a comedy of errors for you?
No. It is in that if comedy is tragedy and you enjoy a dark comedy where you cry and laugh a little bit, then it's been hilarious.
Tragic comedy. I like that.
Yes. Shakespearean comedy.
Yes.
It has been Shakespearean type of comedy where people are dying left and right. It is, yes, it's funny. The first half of the season started with a botched snap. And somehow it seemed to get worse from there, right? That's started out with that fumbled snap. And that was just a precursor to what this season has been. 8 games have been incredibly inconsistent. And it's new issues that seem to pop up seemingly every week, which is very frustrating. And my hope was that the light would just come on for the 49ers, that at some point they would flip the switch and this comedy of errors, all of these mistakes, all of these penalties would slowly regress, and then they would be on track, right? That they would realize that they could put it all together. But it just doesn't stop. So can it possibly continue the second half of the season? Do you see this continuing as it has been, or do you see signs of improvement?
I see this continuing as it has been. I don't see anyone. You know how Steve Young said there's no dogs in this team? Jerry Rice said there's no dogs in this team. For them to turn this around, there would have to be a Steve Young, a Jerry Rice to say, what the? We're 3-5? Right. No team that I'm on is 3-5. This is how we're gonna practice, how we're gonna get to the playoffs. And Richard Sherman could have said stuff like that. Joe Staley could have said stuff like that. They don't have guys like that anymore. It doesn't seem like this team has that attitude right now. That the team's attitude is a lot of guys who are on one-year deals who won't be here next year, and a lot of guys who haven't gotten paid who are just getting their numbers, and to the Niners' benefit, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, but that's what's fueling them right now. Getting money in the future. I don't see anyone being like, we're gonna make the freaking playoffs, and we're like, not that you have to do a whole speech, but I just don't see any type of fire in propelling the team in that direction.
What you described there sounds to me as
what you said about the season starting on a fumbled snap is so fitting. That was totally foreshadowing the whole season. When it happened, you're like, oh, that's funny. No, that's basically a microcosm of the season, fumbling the first snap.
It really is. And what you're describing there with Jerry Rice, Steve Young, sounds to me as someone who is willing to grab the team by the throat and literally will them to a win, drag them across the line and say, no, not on my watch, not happening. I'm not going to allow it to happen. I'm too talented of a player to be on a team that's underperforming like this. You're my teammate. I'm not going to allow you to make me look bad. So pick it up. Get it. It's a gravitas that allows that type of a player with that level of ability to check someone else, to get in their face. And I do acknowledge that they're from a different school of football player, that people have changed, society has changed, and it seems professional athletes have changed as well. It doesn't sound like that happens as frequently. I think there are still locker rooms where it does. I think if you go to the Ravens, the Steelers, those are still old school football operations that have their alumni in-house quite a bit. And the 49ers, for as much as the alumni appear, I don't think they're as involved with the team as someone like the Pittsburgh Steelers, where you have those gold jacket guys showing up and talking to the players.
I think it's just been understood from the minute the Niners traded up to number 3 that this is a throwaway year. I just think it's obvious because they were trying to sell all these vets on making another run to the Super Bowl.
Right.
But then you traded up for a pick you're not going to use, for a player who's for the future. So what you really told your vets were making a Super Bowl run, but what you told them with your actions is we're not going anywhere. And so we're picking for the future. And so what I think you've seen is kind of a team that has no direction. This is a throwaway year, and everyone knows it on the team. Like, what are we doing here? We're not going anywhere. We're not that great, and I'm not going to be here next year. So what's up? Like, either I'm going to get paid, I'm going to use this as my springboard to get paid, or I'm going to, I'm out.
In that scenario, do you see the front office knowing it's a failed strategy going into it and just attempting to sell the fan base on it, or were they misled as well? Were they misleading themselves?
See, to me, this is something that Kyle Shanahan could get wrong. I don't think Kyle Shanahan has a good feel for people. He's kind of robotic, and I think he's kind of robotic, and he kind of treats his players like robots. And I don't think it ever occurred to him if you sign a bunch of vets on 1-year deals and then trade 3 first-round picks for a guy that's not going to be on the field anytime soon, that's a mixed message you're sending your locker room, not just your fan base, your locker room. You told them, let's do it one more time. Let's go to the Super Bowl. And then when it's time to actually get some reinforcements for the run, you're like, yeah, I don't really think that much of you guys. Sorry, we're going to hedge our bets here. Every guy in the locker room understood that. So, I mean, if you're Jaquiski Tartt, you're sitting there like, well, what did we just re-sign up for? Where are we going here? I'm sorry. And now you're seeing, it's vets making mistakes during game. It's just a rudderless team. going nowhere.
It is. And whether
That's how you
it
lose to
started
the
that
B-team Cardinals.
Yeah, whether it started that way or whether enough of these errors occurred early in the season and those veterans got dejected and came to this realization after a few games, whatever the order of operations was, I do think it's fair to say that they're now saying, well, how are we supposed to really compete this year when 6 of the 8 draft picks from this year didn't see a snap on offense or defense against the Cardinals?
But to your
how
point
are we
earlier,
supposed
like,
to compete?
at no point in this season did the Niners look sharp. Like, they struggled and bumbled around against the Lions. Hot start, couldn't finish it. And then they really struggled with the Eagles. They looked good against the Bears after halftime. This really looks like a team that never really bought into itself.
Yeah, never bought in or immediately developed questions. I mean, it was from the outset, there was doubt. There had to be doubt after the way in which they finished against Detroit.
How can you have confidence in yourself and your team and your season when the coach won't even say who the quarterback is? When you're at that level, how? And then that creates the lack of an identity. I mean, it's all, again, it's like a roster in a season set up by someone who's really tone deaf in terms of human emotional dynamics. Like,
it's an astute observation. It seems to be Kyle's weakest point as far as being a leader of men is his inability to really read the room in that respect. I mean, he created a great deal of the conflict that happened early in this year by his attitude with the press, with people like yourself, with the way in which he answered questions, his refusal to acknowledge that, yes, they created a situation that, of course, the fans were going to have questions about. So you should be ready to answer those.
And he changed his story constantly. Jimmy's the quarterback. Actually, we're going to do a 2-quarterback system where both of them play. Actually, we're not going to do that. Like, it's not just the fans and the media. I think he thinks he's messing with the media. Well, you're also messing with your fan base who used to like you and used to trust you and now is totally lost. And your locker room, your players are listening to you talk and they're like, what the hell is, what are we doing this year? What are we doing this year? And I think they're playing like a team that's like, Debo's like, okay, I'm getting paid this year. Bosa's like, all right, I'm getting paid this year.
Debo's definitely getting paid.
All right, I'm getting my PFF grade up this year. But a lot of guys right now are like, hey, man, I don't know if I'm going to be here next year. And I don't know. Comedy of errors.
They've gone to a business-like approach where I'm going to get mine. I'm going to make sure that I'm taken care of. But that's not a team concept. That's not successful in the NFL.
No, and as your point, like, these kind of teams can succeed if they have early success. But once things start going bad, business decision central. That's how it goes. Right. And that's what, to me, honestly, the 2014 Niners were the same way. It was kind of obvious that things were going bad, and everyone was like, and you ended up going 8-8, and there was a mass exodus at the end of the year. This season could be just like that. 9-8 mass exodus, 8-9 mass exodus.
You can't blame the players for that. It's a very short life they have in the NFL. It is a business decision. They've got to look out for number one.
It's true. And Kyle needs to know this. You've been in the league for 15 years. What did you think was going to happen? I guess he thought they were going to go 8-0 to start the season. They just avoid this. Well, you didn't. Not funny.
Started rough.
Answer some questions. Koba says, how much do you think race plays into Trey not playing quarterback, like the Collins stuff? And does that maybe play into some of the other rookies' thoughts? Okay, I don't think Kyle's in there being like, you know what? I don't want to play a black quarterback. I don't think that's it. But I do think that the NFL is a very conservative league and football is a very conservative sport. And there's just kind of these, like, I don't know if you call them biases or whatever, where people just like, well, this kid just isn't ready. And you're like, well, why do you say that? Why are you assuming that when this other kid you think is ready? And I think that's kind of where it comes into play a little bit. And you see, and it's a pattern you can't ignore. That black quarterbacks just have to work harder to prove that they're even ready to get on the field. When I said, come on, really?
Yeah.
You kidding? All that talent won't translate for him, but it will translate for him. Like, why? Why? I don't get that. So I'm with you on that, but I don't think it's anything that really coaches are thinking about. It's just something that.
No, on a conscious level, I don't think that it plays into it at all. Let me shoot it down on that level.
I don't think it does either.
Having taught it at the corporate level, unconscious bias is a very real thing that everyone suffers from. Does that play into it? Yes, absolutely. Everyone.
Like, go back and watch what I said about Justin Fields before the draft. I was really critical of Justin Fields. And I go back, I'm like, man, I fed into it again. And I'll do better next year. But it's there in football. And it's I fall into it frequently, and I try to do better the next time. So if I could, why couldn't Kyle?
Yeah, the only way to combat it is to know it exists and then look at yourself in the mirror and examine your past behaviors.
I did do it. Let's do better next time. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. End of year injuries, execution, and excuses. Yeah, that's what Junebug Spade is anticipating. Well, it's usually a good bet with the 49ers.
It is. And you would think that Kyle will point to John on those injuries, right? Hey, he built a flawed roster. Again, if it gets down to pointing fingers, it gets ugly. I just hope it doesn't devolve into that.
Yep. Double B Studio says, Grant, I hate that you've been right all along. Me too.
Me three.
But you've been right all along. Ask Kyle, this season may be over. Are you going to start Trey? Yes. He'll love that. He will really like that.
He's
hey,
quite
Kyle,
fond
I got a
of
new
your
question
questions.
for you. When are you going to start Trey Lance? You haven't heard this one yet.
Here's a first, Kyle.
Trey should be qualified to win Rookie of the Year next year. That's funny. It's true, though.
It's funny. I like it.
Kyle needs starters for O to work. Injuries equals domino effect on O. If he doesn't have the D giving him 3 and outs, so he has more opportunities to score like 2019, then he can't score enough to win, hence the Super Bowl.
It is a football team that's built around complementary football, but I think that's true of some. If your offensive identity is to run the ball, then I do think you attempt to play complementary football, because typically you're not going to get as many explosive plays out of a run-heavy offense as you would from a spread offense, right? So you do need to play more conservative in that way.
I have another theory.
Okay.
I think Kyle needs like a deadline and some urgency to coach well. Like, everyone wrote off his 2 first years on the Niners as well. He had a bad team, and it's the same team now. It's like 27 and 2018 are a lot like 2020 and 21. Honestly, they're very similar. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle somehow brings it all together next year, because deadline spurs creativity. And this guy, when it's time for him to like get the next contract or prove himself, he really rises to the occasion, has done it multiple times in his career. The problem may have been giving him the extension, because now you're basically saying, hey, like, anything you do the next 2 years doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and I don't know if he's the kind of guy who's at his best when he knows nothing matters. I think he might need, I don't know if I could. I don't know if you could. Here's just tons of money, and deep down we can't fire you for 2 years. Go get him. Like, really, maybe next year, if he feels, I'm on the hot seat, they could fire me. All right, here I go. Because to me, that's been his pattern. That's been his pattern his whole career. Oh, I need to save my job. Boom, here I go. I'm good. I can do this. I can do this. I've done it before. Yeah.
As a professional procrastinator, I can relate to that. That sometimes you get your most creative stuff when your back is up against the wall.
Oh, we got a show in an hour? I just thought of 12 topics. Funny how that goes. Last night I had nothing. Now I got 12. Yeah, that's how it goes. That's what I'm saying. That's human nature. And again, Jed not understanding it. Jed, why was it smart? How did it benefit Kyle to give him that extension? He wasn't going anywhere. Where was he going? What would the last 2 years have been like if Kyle was under the gun? To use a metaphor, what would it have been like? Maybe it would have been a lot better. Oh, he would have been unhappy? Good. Maybe he'll coach better. Harbaugh was unhappy when he was here. He coached really well. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Pressure makes diamonds, baby.
Hell yeah. The plays aren't what they were last year. Last year they lost due to lack of star players, almost winning games. This year they lose almost on purpose. Oh, man, that's a bleak way for Niner fans to look at this, but I see what they're saying.
It's how bad the season has been that 49ers fans have turned to feelings like that. And you cannot honestly blame them.
No. Kyle says the core issue of this sorry-ass franchise is ownership. True. From the stadium location to the habitual blundering of hiring coaches, Eddie wouldn't have created this dumpster fire. It's really grim. Yeah, that's the thing about Niner. Like, I think Niner fans don't want to really look at that because it's so grim. So you just don't go there. Tough. Sorry, guys.
It's not fixable.
It's not. That's the thing. It's not fixable. And the Yorks just make more money. They no matter what, they just make more money. And the
hand over fist.
Oh. Casey says, partying after the Super Bowl loss with Lil Wayne was the first sign of failure and lack of leadership. Thought they could run it back, doing what worked in 19 without DeForest Buckner. Yeah, I'm with you, man. That was really disconnected from reality, dude. What?
Also, I was in Miami and I did not get my invite.
Yeah, where was that? I should have been there. Matt H says, I see 2022 being just as bad unless we have 2021 Patriots like offseason and throw the bank at free agents. I'd write blank check for a new right guard cornerback. This team is not going to have a lot of cap space.
No.
Jimmy could be back next year. In fact, players on one-year deals think the Niners revived veterans other teams didn't want and using the opportunity selfishly. I'm going to get mine, you get yours. That's what happens on football teams when you're 2 and 3 and 5 and you're on a one-year deal. It's just always what happens. Fan base would have been okay with our record if the front office was honest about this being a rebuild year as soon as Lance was picked. True.
Transparency would have been such a relief to the fan base. It would
and
have
the locker room.
Yes.
And the locker room.
Yes.
Let's not discount that because they're watching all this too and they're smart.
Yes, the reason everyone's upset is expectations versus reality. The expectations fall on the 49ers front office and coaching staff for setting those expectations.
The Niners couldn't say the phrase 2019 vibes enough this offseason. I'm getting a feeling that those pass rush, oh my God, this run game, getting those 2019 vibes. They couldn't say it. It was a slogan to sell tickets. And then on top of that, they printed these red 94 throwback jerseys to sell, with the implication being going back to Super Bowl year, because that's the last year they won the Super Bowl.
94, baby.
We're gonna win. We're gonna win it this year. So they sold all. They used the hope of a Super Bowl run to sell tickets and jerseys. And a lot of you guys bought the tickets and the jerseys. I feel so bad. Yeah. Yup.
Yeah.
Would you be surprised if Kyle drafts his quarterback next year in the late rounds and goes through another year of Trey Lance quarterback soap opera? I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. I wouldn't be surprised at CJ. Maybe they re-sign CJ. No, Jimmy's going to be here next year. That's my prediction.
That's a bold prediction. I would not be shocked by a Kirk Cousins type draft move at all. Just 1 year removed.
No, Jimmy's going nowhere. Jimmy is sticking around just to piss off everyone for fun. Okay. Changing momentum. Have we done this one yet?
We have not.
Let's talk about it.
Obviously, anything can happen in the NFL. Let's start there. We're not ruling out that the 49ers can't, potentially go on a winning streak. They could, in theory, win every single game remaining on the schedule. They could, in theory, beat the Rams on Monday night. But let's be a little bit more realistic and acknowledge that that is a very tough task. In particular, Monday night against a very talented Rams teams. And the odds are better that they lose, certainly according to Vegas. So my question for you is, if the 49ers do lose, what are some signs that you'll be looking for that they're at least changing their momentum, that they're building up to be able to beat some of the remaining more beatable teams on the schedule and finish with a respectable end to the season, not go down in flames?
Okay, two things. On defense, DeMeco's really struggling right now.
Yes.
He had a few good games. He's had a few bad ones. I'm not ready to write him off, but he's at the point right now in a season for a coordinator where he has to make a big adjustment, something, because he can't stop the run. I mean, he can't stop a lot. Really can't stop anything right now. But if you can't stop, the reason you can't stop the run is because when you can't stop anything is because you can't stop the run.
Right.
Because if an offense can run, then everything's available to him. So you got to show that you can stop the run, because say what you want about Robert Saleh, how he improved and he struggled early on, whatever. He always had the answer about stopping the run. Remember, the Chip Kelly year, they get the worst run defense in franchise history. Robert Saleh came in, fixed that right away, and then built from there. DeMeco has to fix this right now. Otherwise, the Niners are going nowhere. Yeah, they're going to lose time of possession. They're going to give up a lot of points, and they're going to lose. So that's one.
Stopping the run, just a clarifying question here for you. Oftentimes about getting your nose in there, solid tackling. Is that an effort question for you, them stopping the run, or is that more scheme? Are you looking for scheme?
The effort was not good against Arizona. They definitely thought Arizona was going to lay down. But it's also, what fronts are you calling as a coach?
Okay.
They use this wide 9 front a lot.
Right.
It's gimmicky as hell. And you can get away with it when you have DeForest Buckner and all the, just all pro. Yeah, you can do it.
People that can eat up double teams.
Hell yeah. But they don't have that anymore. And so what you have is a really gimmicky front that's getting gouged in the run game. Do something else. That's not helping. The wide 9 isn't helping anything right now. Do something else. Show that you have a changeup, because your fastball is getting crushed right now. What you got? So that's important. You got to do something.
So you're looking at both scheme and execution on defense.
Yeah.
Okay. On the offensive side of the ball, how do they start to get their confidence back there?
Hand the ball to Elijah Mitchell, for God's sake, a lot of times. And then when you're not handing it to him, hand it to Trey Sermon. And then when you're not handing it to him, hand it to Jeff Wilson Jr. Get back to the team that's identity was we're trying to get 30 runs. If we can get to 30 runs in a game, we'll win. That used to be what they did. They just gave up. And they were like, we're going to throw 50 times against the Cardinals. You don't win that way. Since when do you ever win that way? Don't do that. So if I can see them like get their identity back on offense, hand the ball off to their running backs. And when was the last time you saw a play action pass from under center? I don't even remember them doing that anymore. That used to be what their offense was all about. So I like to see those things. If they could lose, like stopping the run, handing off, and throwing play action passes, I'd be like, okay, well, you just lost to a better team. You lost to the Rams. Fair enough.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you stuck to who you are. You executed what you do, and you lost to a better
team. And you
team.
built for next week.
There's no shame in
that. All that stuff even better.
That's not an embarrassment. That's just a loss. That's hey, you got beat. But if you're not doing what you do well, you got away from it. You're allowing the other team to dictate what you do. You're not stopping the run. You're not putting your nose in there. That's embarrassing. And the 49ers can't afford another embarrassing game.
Not on Monday Night Football. Yeah. Everyone thinks Kyle Shanahan is definitely coming back next year. Everyone thought Chip Kelly definitely was coming back for a second. You remember people were like, oh, they're not going to fire 3 coaches in 3 years.
Right.
They did.
So,
Kyle, you got to do something here. You got to show something because this season could get bad. It could get really bad.
Who would you rather have more of the secondary carries behind Elijah Mitchell? Would you rather have it be Trey Sermon or Jeff Wilson Jr.?
If Wilson's ready, Wilson's been out for a long time, but if Wilson's ready, he's terrific. I really like him, but I don't see a problem with Trey Sermon. Give him the ball. Give him a chance.
Yeah. I'm glad Jeff Wilson's back for that third down back now that Hasty's dinged up again.
Yeah. Yeah, Wilson's terrific. I just hope he's, in football shape. It usually takes a little while.
Right.
All right, next topic. Is it a mistake to push for the playoffs?
I'm sure 49ers fans are asking themselves, why do we keep talking about the frickin' playoffs? Well, the reason we keep talking about it is that when a team feels like they have a chance at the playoffs, they carry that belief into their philosophy of what actions they take. Mm-hmm. For example, starting younger players. And so we have to examine this because the 49ers actions say to us, we still believe that we're in this playoff hunt. We're taking the actions accordingly. So it's a relevant question. Do you agree? Do you believe that the 49ers are still prioritizing the playoffs at this particular junction, being just one game out of that 7th spot?
Clearly they are. Clearly. And when you ask them why they're not, they look at you like, what are you talking about? And I think the reason they're doing it, even though it seems like a really bad idea, because what happens even if you make it? Okay, you're the 7th seed. You made it. Great. Are you going to win a game? Are you going anywhere? Okay, no. Or let's say you probably don't. You go 9-8. You get to the playoffs, and then what did you accomplish for next year? Why does next year look promising? You have to re-sign all these vets. Is that what you're going to do, or you're going to play rookies who didn't play last year? That's the problem. So the mistake to push for the playoffs. Here's why they have to, because again, Kyle Shanahan sold this locker room on. We're going to the playoffs. And as soon as you pull the rug out from under them, they're like, what did we sign up for? You lied to us. So if he hasn't lost the locker room already, then he would. And I don't think he wants to do that when your job is on the line. Once you lose the locker room, that is so easy to fire a guy. I mean, it seemed unfathomable that the Eagles would fire Doug Peterson. He won the Super Bowl. But then he had another losing season and he lost the locker room. So it was like, well, he's not going to fix this unless we just get 53 new players. That's not going to happen.
No. So losing the locker room could in fact be detrimental to Kyle. So would that be evidence to you? Would in fact be detrimental to Kyle.
Good.
So if that's the case, would you then say, given that factor, that it's completely logical that they continue to push for the playoffs?
He has no choice. Now, if he had been honest with the team, if they hadn't re-signed all these vets, if he had a little more standing, if he wasn't 8 games under 500, he could do whatever the hell he wanted to do. But I think he feels like I have no choice. I might have already lost this locker room. I mean, look how they played at home. Look how they play every home game. And tell me that's not a coach who hasn't lost their team. So, I mean, it's already shaky. Now I tell them, hey, guys, guess what? We're 1 game out of the playoff push, but I don't believe in you. I really don't believe in you. We're going with the Rooks. I mean, now you're a a lame duck coach. You just made yourself one.
Does that change at all if they lose to LA on Monday night? Does that give him the runway to say, you know what, we were trying, but we've got to shift at this point?
He said it today. I mean, not today. He said it this week. We are not starting Trey Lance until we're essentially mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. That's how he said it. That's what's going to be. He's not lying. He's telling, and every time he gets the question, I keep telling you, we're not going to go that route until we're out of it. So unless they're out of it, Jimmy's going to be starting in Jacksonville.
He does continue to reiterate that, and you guys asking the questions are like, we'll give you a chance here to reverse course here. Like, are you sure that's what you want?
Like you're. It's basically saying like, okay, sir, who's steering the Titanic? Are you going to turn? No, we're gonna continue course.
We're on course. We're on course.
You see the iceberg, right? What? No, we have to give ourselves a chance here.
Yeah, we started out going this direction. We're going this direction. 8
straight home losses. How does that freaking happen? How does that freaking happen? Now, there weren't last year was weird. There weren't fans. This year, they're fans. And they still stink at home. 0-4. About to be 0-5. Sorry. How does that happen?
They haven't won a game since October 18th of 2020 in Levi's Stadium. And it was against the Rams. So, let's take that with a little bit of hope that maybe they end the streak with the Rams as well. I know I'm not going to convince you of that. But why is home field advantage eluding them? What do you see about Levi's that could potentially play into this narrative that there's the Levi's curse or that it's a nondescript place to play and the fan base doesn't get rowdy, the building isn't built in the way that creates excessive crowd noise? What is your take on Levi's as a structure? Does it lack home field advantage?
Well, yeah, clearly. If they lose their next 2 home games, I think they'll have the worst home winning percentage of any stadium in the history of the NFL. And then right now, I think they're like 4th worst. So it's like demonstrable. So why? It's not like yes or no. Yes. So why? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Santa Clara isn't San Francisco. It's not even San Jose. It's a very small little shopping center town with, nothing there. It's got Great America. It's not a town, really. It's just kind of like I don't know what you would call it. It's not a town.
Yeah, it's definitely not a city. That's for sure.
Area. It's an area. So you moved your city, you moved your place from a historic site where it wasn't glamorous, but it was historic, like where Yankee Stadium is.
Right.
And then you moved it to some area with nothing. So there's that. And then it's always either too hot or it's too cold. And there's nothing special about sitting and watching the game. It's like for rich people. It's like, okay, we can't charge enough for candlesticks. So we're going to make this place for rich people. But rich people don't want to sit out in the open air. There's nothing. Doesn't make you feel rich. All the stuff that makes you feel rich are like indoors, underground, lounges. And that's cool. But then what happens is you get this sparse stadium where people are kind of not there. And it's like a tennis match. People are kind of watching, kind of not. They're there for the entertainment. It's like they're not there to watch wins. It's just a really weird, whereas like a candlestick, you were there for one reason only. That's it. I'm here to watch football. I'm here to watch the Niners. I've been doing it's a whole different thing. In
Candlestick wasn't luxury. People urinated in troughs. I mean, it was old school, right?
Yeah, old school.
And that's a very interesting angle that Levi's was built to capitalize on the wealth of Silicon Valley. It was absolutely built to house millionaires and billionaires coming in, buying luxury boxes, spending immense amounts of money. And many of the best elements of the stadium are things that take you away from the game. They are quite literally designed to drag you away from your seat, down underneath the stadium, into a glass-walled club. Like all these things get you out of your seats. And rich people do what they want to begin with.
There's nothing to keep you in the seat either. I mean, there's nothing cool about being outside. It's just hot. And it's just like, it's like candlestick, really. I mean, there's nothing special about that. So it draws you away from the field. Here's one thing that's emblematic of the problem of Levi's. Even when they're good, they have this section. Of course, there's the west section that has some shade and the east section that has none. And the east section, like the bottom level, is this you know, like the most expensive section of that level is right on the bottom, right in the middle. No one's ever sitting there because they're expensive seats and they're exposed to the sun, and no one wants to sit there. So it's like, oh, that's the rich people section. They're, you know, in a lounge, something, and it's a bad look. Every game that's empty, not empty, but sparse. It's a bad look.
I had the privilege of sitting in one of those seats at one point, 2018 against the Cowboys, I believe. It was Dwight Clark's ceremony, that game. I was there in that stadium and I cooked. I mean, I'm pasty white Portland guy, so I'm not designed to sit in the sun like that. And I sat on those east stands and just melted. I could not believe how uncomfortable it was. And it wasn't a terribly hot day.
At what point did you realize like this is uncomfortable?
It took like 20 minutes before I was like, this is untenable. Wow. This is complete. And sure enough, the best things were right below me in the basement. Go down, eat all you want, all you can eat food, all you can drink.
It's great. But it's like you created it's like you created this thing where no one wants to be there watching the game. Everyone's inside. There are really nice lounges there. There's good food. You can go all around and watch the game on television and not get roasted, not have to think, am I going to get a heat stroke today?
It's wild that they used the very same stadium design that should have gone in San Francisco for Santa Clara without considering a need for shade in that Santa Clara weather. That's one of the biggest factors to me because it's so uncomfortable. I've felt it myself. I can vouch for those people that are not in the stands that when it's hot out, I don't blame them for not being in the stands.
Yeah, and it's just by far the worst stadium on the West Coast. I mean, the one in Seattle is glorious. The one in Arizona is out in the suburb, but at least you don't roast.
Right.
The one in, the two, Vegas and LA are actually, it seems like people want to sit in your stand. Like it's actually a cool experience sitting in the stands. And then you got Levi's. So
yeah, LA, they put this enormous screen up there so that you sit in your seats and look at it. Right. Because it's
same with Dallas.
Yeah.
Same with
Keep
Dallas.
You butts in seats.
In the seats. Yeah, I'm just saying. Might help.
And they didn't even design a stadium that could amplify the noise after witnessing how advantageous that was for Seattle. It blows your mind. It really does.
How long before they're back in San Francisco, in your opinion?
I pray that the sooner the better. I have a brick that sits out there in the entrance to Levi's Stadium that has mine and my wife's name on it, and I'm proud of it. I take a picture by it every time I go to Levi's, but I hope it gets destroyed within the next decade.
I am going to make a prediction right now. It's 2021. I say by 2040, they're back in San Francisco.
I think you're right. I might put it a bit earlier.
It might, yeah. It could be 2030. They might have to get the balls rolling, the wheels rolling on that one, but 2040, for sure.
So much more to gain from being in the city with a marquee stadium.
I mean, the Niners just gave up and left, and Joe Lacob was like, can the Warriors go?
Can we have some of that?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Well, you want Santa Clara? Okay, you take Santa Clara. We wanted Santa Clara, but you take Santa Clara. We'll go next set. Okay, you win. Fine, we'll take your leftovers. Strange.
It's that much more painful when another organization in the same city is so much more successful.
Yeah. What's a respectable finish to this season?
Oof. The 49ers are at the halfway point, slightly below it because of the odd number of games, but they're sitting at 3-5. What really does have to happen down the stretch to turn the season around? Even if it's not the playoffs, my question would be, what would satiate the fan base? And I have to ask myself this. Is it just Trey's progression? Do we need a winning record? But before I answer it, how do you see it? What has to happen for a quote unquote respectable finish? I'm not talking necessarily playoffs here. Obviously, playoffs are a respectable finish. What else would count?
Well, sure. I mean, if the Niners could pivot right now and start playing all their youngsters, and even if they missed the playoffs, they would get all this development from Trey Lance and Trey Sermon and Aaron Banks. And that would be, I think Niner fans would actually accept that.
I agree.
But that's not going to happen. They've really made it clear that that's only going to happen at the very, very end. So if the 49ers stay in the race, and they're only game out, how are they going to fall out of how are they going to get mathematically eliminated from the playoff race anytime soon?
It could take 6-7 weeks.
It could. If it ever happens. So, I mean, I think given that we sort of know where this is going, The only way to redeem this season is for the Niners to actually make the playoffs. Otherwise, it was just a giant waste of time. A giant waste of time. So make the playoffs. And you're only one game out? Great. Okay, make the playoffs. You got to do it. But then, even then, if you do that and you lose in the first round and then you bring back Jimmy next year, it's like, well, maybe that playoff run wasn't for the best. It was fun. We don't have very many of those. We got a winning record. But even that kind of set us back because once again, we're like not embracing the future. But anyway, that's what they have to do. And I think that Kyle understands that. I think he's all in for a playoff berth, doing whatever he can.
I certainly agree that makes it a respectable season. Even if you go 1 and out, there's something to making the playoffs that gives you credibility as an organization, that gives you optimism heading into the next year, that gives you experience for your players in the postseason. For me, it has to involve some progression for Trey Lance in order for this to be a successful season. If we never get back to Trey getting snaps in a game, you can't count that as a successful season in my book.
I agree. I'm with you. And that's something Kyle's going to have to think about.
Yes. I think that a winning record, if you can get to 9-8, even if you miss the playoffs, so long as you have shown some promise from a couple of the rookies, and maybe not even a couple. If you see promise from Trey, that's all you need. But if it's mix and match from Trey, if you could see Trey Sermon coming in, if Aaron Banks takes over the role, and you start to see signs towards the future of progression, to me, I think that's a respectable finish as well. So certainly agree on the playoffs. I guess I'm willing to settle for less at this point.
What's crazy is it's like if you polled the fan base, what would you rather do? Strive for 9-8 with Jimmy Garoppolo. Start Trey Lance the rest of the season. Strive for 9-8 with Jimmy G. Start Trey Lance. I would think 80% of the fan base would say start Trey Lance.
I think you're right.
Right? And the fact that Kyle Shanahan wants the other option is, again, like all year. Dude, why are you doing the super unpopular thing all year? Really? Striving for 9-8 with Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay. Well, maybe, again, we talked about earlier, you sold the locker room on something and you don't have as much. You're afraid of just losing it. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like you see how you've painted yourself into these corners to make bad decisions.
Admittedly, the season seems to be playing out in a negative fashion, and so I think it's most likely to continue to be a struggle. But admittedly, if it does turn around at the end of the season, I will have to tip my cap to Kyle Shanahan for never straying, for being so stubborn, for never straying from the course. It's hard for me to imagine that being the case, but if it does, I will have to congratulate Kyle for sticking to his guns.
Here's what's going to happen. If the Niners lose this Monday night to the Rams, they're going to be 3-6, and people are going to start saying, okay, is it over? Are you going to start Trey Lance? And he's going to go immediately to, I was 3-6, 2012.
Washington football team.
Then I ended up going on a run. He's going to say that. Now, in 2012, he had a rookie quarterback who made a big leap and started improving and playing better. Niners don't exactly have that, but he's not going to give up if they lose to the Rams, is my prediction. But they haven't lost to the Rams yet. And the Rams just lost to the Titans. Let's talk about how that happened.
Yeah. How did you see it? How did the Titans beat the Rams so handily? Obviously, there was the immediate 2 interceptions that allowed them to jump out to the early lead. And that gives you pause about whether the 49ers can replicate it. But other than the 2 interceptions, what did you see in that game that the Titans did so well?
Get pressure on Stafford. It's all started
5
with that.
sacks.
It all started with that. And it seemed to be what happened was they were getting pressure up the middle. Interior pressure, and that forced Stafford to slide left and right into other pass rushers. And the Niners can do this. Eric Armstead really got a lot of pressure up the middle in the last
From
game.
The inside.
He can do it. And then you got Nick Bosa right there on the other side, Samson Ebukam. They certainly can replicate what the Titans did on defense. And then the Niners have had success running the ball against the Rams in the past. This is where Deebo Samuel has, those end arounds and stuff like that. I'm sure the Rams will be prepared for it, but if they can get the pressure that the Titans did and just run the ball, the Niners have beaten the Rams 4 times in a row for a reason.
Yeah, the Rams had to get away from the run because it was working well, but those immediate turnovers, getting behind 14-3, really forced them out of that. I think that's the recipe for success for the 49ers. I have my doubts about them being able to force the turnovers. It's just unbelievable to this point in the season, their ability to cough it up, but inability to take it away from opposing teams. So that had me worried. When I looked at the game, looked at the matchup, it seemed that the biggest factor of the Titans winning that game was the turnovers.
Sure.
And that leaves me feeling like, because the Rams defense held the Titans to under 200 yards of offense. So if you take away those 2 turnovers, it really wasn't that great for Tennessee.
Right.
They did cause the chaos with Matt Stafford. It was getting after him. I agree with you that when you have a less than mobile quarterback, pressure up the middle is so hard to deal with. If we can sack him, that is our best
Armstead
course.
needs to play like he did last week. Armstead needs to be an MVP of this defense.
You're telling me there's a chance?
I think there is a chance. I do. So let's talk about it. Will the Niners get embarrassed again, like they did last week and against the Colts? The last 2 home games, they just got utterly embarrassed. Yeah. Will they get embarrassed again? What do you think?
No question that Arizona game was completely demoralizing.
Yeah.
I have to ask myself, will a team allow that to happen a second time? I believe that there are players in the locker room that were quite literally embarrassed with what was put on tape last year, and they had to watch it all week in the film sessions. They had to watch themselves get trucked. They had to watch themselves miss tackles.
Yeah.
And now they're going to be playing on national television in front of the entire world underneath the lights. Does the team have leaders that are going to step up in this scenario and just say, like we talked about earlier with Rice and Young, I will not allow this to happen? Do they have those types of players in your observation?
Well, I think no. But here's the thing. I don't think the Niners are going to get embarrassed in this game. I think this is going to be a really close game the way that the Packers game was. The Niners probably will lose. But what happened last week was an undisciplined, poorly prepared, poorly coached team thought a banged up team missing their starting quarterback was going to lay down. Oh, they didn't. And now you're not really emotionally prepared for the fight. That's what Joe Staley said about him. They didn't look emotionally prepared for the fight.
Right.
They will be in this week. It's the Rams. It's not going to be a monsoon. It's the Rams. They know they're good. They know they got Stafford. They know they got to play their best. The Niners, played pretty well against the Cardinals the first time. They played pretty well against the Packers. They can rise to the occasion before they beat themselves at the end of the game as opposed to early. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to get embarrassed. They match up well with the Rams. They're not going to underestimate the Rams. They have a lot of good players. I mean, they should be a close game.
I have to agree wholeheartedly. And I think that not all leaders are born. And right now, the 49ers may not have a leader who can step up in the way that Steve Young or Jerry Rice described and will themselves to a win. But they have leaders who can take the next step. And pressure creates those diamonds. This is a void of leadership that someone can step up and fill. I think they have enough talented players on the roster that one of them will step up in this regard. I also predict the 49ers will not be embarrassed on Monday Night Football.
No, I don't think they'll be embarrassed. I think they'll lose, though. But if they could get some leadership from Trent Williams, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, that'd be great because they're getting paid a lot. And this team has no leadership. So those guys, they're the ones that have to step up.
Absolutely.
Vikrant says, at least the silver lining to a losing season is have a higher first-round next. Oh, wait. Well put. I was almost going to correct you on that one. Yeah, so painful. Would David Shaw? No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But honestly, David Shaw, that offense is the same exact offense it was 10 years ago. Can we get someone a little more cutting edge if you're going the college route? Just saying.
Yeah, I'm trusting yours and your father's opinions on this one. I've heard similar takes from Lowell as well, and I trust that you guys have watched more Stanford football than I have.
Also, I think Shaw's making like $9 million a year at Stanford. Why would he leave? Like, you get to make that much, job. And you don't even have to win. You win like 7 games a year. No, he's not. He's got a good job. He's got a good job. Hasn't the Rams proved cap space doesn't matter? Yeah, they show that you can constantly manipulate it. And it seems like the Niners are still kind of operating under the way they did 20 years ago when they're like, oh my God, the cap is this new thing and we have to be very conscientious about it. Yeah. Their ways.
The Rams have
Their
been
tricks.
significantly more creative and aggressive in the realm of the cap. The cap is absolutely a very real set of parameters, and you can do whatever the hell you want within those parameters.
Yeah, and there's 25-6 years of accumulated knowledge and tricks passed around team from team, how to get around, how to create cap space. I mean, it's not hard, and the Rams do it all the time, and the Niners are over here being like, oh, that's not going to work out for the Rams. That was totally irresponsible. Meanwhile, the Rams are good every year, and the Niners aren't.
Right. The bill comes due, but if you've won in between now and then that's all that matters.
Are those the progressive commercials where they prevent you from becoming your parents? The Niners
Yes.
are the people in those commercials like, oh, you should have got to the airport a little earlier. Like, no, you guys are a little out of touch. Like the Rams have the iPhone. They have all of it. Sorry, you're still over here using Windows 95. Voice ad agency says Trent Williams and Juice were free agencies this past season. Do you think Jimmy G starting so much is a result of compromise for their re-signing? I mean, it's a lot of guys. I think the vets would like the vets. Here's the thing. The vets believe in Jimmy. They believe in Jimmy. That's so much of what you need in the NFL. That's what you need. We win with him. We believe in him. Now we can actually fight. But Kyle has undercut that for years, and it's one of the worst things about him as a coach is he's actually over there like being like our quarterback isn't that good. That doesn't help anyone to say that, dude. What are you doing?
Also fair to say that those veterans want to win first and foremost. That's their biggest priority.
37 seconds from 3-0, dominated first half of Seattle. No 17-10 Arizona with Trey Lance. Monsoon versus Colts. Suck versus Arizona, but win Monday Night Football. Then what? Soft schedule, number 7 seed, get healthy. So Sean Dunn, I guess this is definitely Kyle Shanahan's burner. No, I love you, Sean. Thank you. No, but this is how to redeem the season. That's how Kyle's thinking right now. Right now. We could have been 3-0. We really easily could be 8-0 right now. Okay, well, go beat the Rams.
Yeah,
and you're not going to beat the Rams. What happens when the Rams put 6 defensive linemen down and say, "Oh, we're just going to do what the Cardinals did"? Are you going to be like, okay, well, we're just going to pass 50 times? What happens then? Beat the Rams. I'd love to see it. It can be done.
The mood will change substantially if they beat the Rams.
Thoughts on Lynch's comments on Warner? I don't know what he said.
I don't either.
Searching. Oh, John Lynch says Fred Warner's not having the season so far. He expects or we expect. Oh man. God. Okay. Here's what. Oh no, wait, hold on. Where is Lynch? Okay, here you go. Here's Lynch. Thursday evening. Fred's not having the season so far that he expects or we expect. You know, sometimes I think you get a big contract and you have a lot going on in your mind. You probably try and do a little too much. He probably needs to try and zero in and just focus on his job. And so, yes, leadership and all that, but at some point you have to get your job done. That's a big part of it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Ultimately, we all just have to be better. Blah, 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 blah. So now it's Warner. What about you, John? What about you?
Yeah, I only have a problem with this if he didn't have the conversation with Warner behind closed doors first.
I have a problem with this because all of this should be prefaced by I'm not doing a good job. Like in the NBA, front offices never throw their players under the bus. It's a player-driven league. And they always are like, first of all, you know, this guy's the greatest in the world, and I'm just trying to do my job and help these guys. But it's like, Fred Warner's letting you down, John Lynch? What are you talking about? Fred Warner is way better at his job than you are at yours. Fred Warner earned his job. You were kind of giving it because of who you are. It's like, come on, man. You don't even have the resume for this. I don't like it.
Did you hear John Harbaugh last night after the game? We weren't prepared to play tonight, and that's on me.
That's what you say, John.
Yep.
Not like Fred Warner needs to do better. No, dude. Who can say that? Someone better at their job than Fred Warner can say that. And that's not you.
Yeah.
David says, if we get curb stomped on Monday Night Football, I think the chorus will be too loud and Lance will start getting real snaps. You think Kyle cares about the chorus? Now, Jed does. That's the thing. I think that's why Mac Jones isn't on the team. But Kyle doesn't care. Kyle doesn't care.
Agreed. So
we'll see. Yeah.
And he shouldn't, right? If he believes he's correct about his convictions, then he shouldn't care about the fan base uproar. He should stick to his guns.
A 42-6 beatdown will move things along. I don't anticipate that happening, but it could. But I don't anticipate it.
I do not.
This next game is going to be really rough. We're going to hear the worst booing we ever have. Jed might walk across the field to fire Kyle. I guess the Niner fans don't have the same type of optimism that we do for the Niners' ability to compete.
Doesn't sound like it.
If Jim scores only 7 again at half, he must go Trey. There will be a revolt, and as stubborn as he is, he loves himself too much to be that unpopular. Where were the boos last week, guys? Didn't hear him. I don't know. Maybe everyone was in the lounges. Why don't you do something, fans? Do something.
It really looked vacant. It's going to be so painful to see all those empty seats on Monday night, dude.
Is Parag responsible for us choosing Santa Clara? God knows. I don't know. That just seems like something someone from Youngstown would do. They'd be like, "What's the difference?"
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's right there.
Santa Clara's better. They have
You
strip
don't
malls.
live here. Yeah, it's fine. It's warmer in Santa Clara. I fear Shan will say you think I'm run, so I'm not. Yeah, that's what he usually does. That's what he did last week. Oh, the Cardinals think we're going to run. Guess what? We're not going to. Genius. Yes, we have talent. Yes, we should keep it close. But I don't trust Banana Hands to coach up this team. Dude, he's got 8 days to get him ready to play a game on Monday Night Football. Come on, Kyle. Anyone can do this. This is a layup. They should be fired up. Your guys should be fired up. When Kyle had RG3 here in the DC area, he installed a good RPO offense without using QB power. RG3 would not have made it to the playoffs running that. Well, he didn't make it. He got hurt anyway. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. But that was back before Kyle had $100 million. He actually had to do stuff and work within a structure of he worked with bosses and follow orders and stuff. Now he just can do whatever he wants. And
he had less on his plate.
Yep. True.
He was focused.
Play theory. That's it. That's the show. The whole show, nothing but the show. Thank you very much, Rob. Some of your best work. In fact, this is our best show.
Hey, I'm going live on my channel immediately following. So head over there, continue the dialogue. Grant's got to go do important stuff.
Very important stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back later. See you later.